So my name is Chaplain Mike McGruder. I am Chaplain Mike Antoinette McGruder. I'm a female by the name of Mike. I'm married to Army Chaplain Michael A. McGruder, and we share names. I'm from Louisiana. I'm an Army veteran. I'm a disabled veteran. I'm a trauma disabled veteran. So I know a little bit about the military, about being a veteran, and about whole health. Before I share my whole health story, I want to just share with you this quote from Plato. Plato says that the cure of a part should not be attempted without treatment of the whole. No attempt should be made to cure the body without the soul. Let no one persuade you to cure the head until he has first given you his soul, his spirit, to be cured. For this is the great error of our day, that physicians first separate the soul from the body. Oftentimes, a person will go into the hospital, will experience, and I'm sorry, I'm a walker, so I'm going to walk a little bit. He may go into the hospital, have an issue with their heart, have an issue with another portion of their body, and we treat the body, but we we underestimate the impact that it has, not only on the soul, but also on the spirit. So let me share with you my whole health story. Spirituality is a very important part of the veteran experience. Transition from the military, understanding where my military me ended and my civilian me began, that's a hard piece. I don't know if any of you who have served had an easy transition. Most often we think that transitioning from the military as a veteran or a spouse or even a dependent, we think the transition piece is leaving active to become a retiree. But it's not. The transition takes place in the mind and in the heart, in the spirit, because I'm no longer who I thought I was. The mission is now over and a new mission has begun. But the mission on the outside of the military looks different. My grandfather served in World War II. He went downrange, he was on the front lines, and he came back, maybe about 15 years after he returned. He spent the rest of his life sitting on the front porch of his home. He and my grandmother no longer slept in the same rooms. He had what we call then shell shocked, so extreme that the only thing he could do was sit on the front porch. He'd wake up in the morning, get a cup of coffee, his food was brought to him, he'd return into the house to relieve himself, and he'd come back out. When it was time to go to bed, he'd go to sleep. He did that for the last 10 years of his life, and then he died. My father, who was a Vietnam War veteran, had such severe PTSD that his life ended. He was a homeless man. He was addicted to substances, and he was a physically abusive individual. So when he came back, he was an African American male in Louisiana, the South, which means he was rejected. That's loss of purpose. That's loss of self. That's loss of meaning. These are spiritual wounds we're speaking about. And then he eventually died of sarcoidosis of the heart, Agent Orange. Then you had his child, myself, who joined the military. I entered into military service. I had secondary PTSD from all the things I saw from the first and the second generation, and I was wise to join the military myself. And I experienced my own personal trauma while in basic training. I was sexually assaulted or sexually raped twice in basic training. And at that point, that's when my spiritual me took a turn. And it's much care that was given to my grandfather, to my father, and to myself. They tried to cure the body. When I left the military, I left because I was unable to walk. I had a surgery, contracted MRSA, and lost my career. I lost my career. That's loss of self. That's loss of identity. That's failure to transition easily because I left on a medical disability. So the parts of who I was no longer. Who I thought myself to be, I was no longer. I was treated physically. I was even treated mentally, but the piece that was so broken was my spiritual man. The whole portion of myself was not considered. And that's why this whole health piece is very important, not just to me, but to all of us. Because we're not only body, we're not only soul, we're also spirit as well. Our environment affects us as well. What we're experiencing affects us. Here are some facts. It takes a village to heal our nation. That's what whole health is about. That's what I'm here to share with you about. It takes a village. The VA has been on a mission for a very long time, but the VA is one entity that is within the community. It takes all of us to come together to heal our veterans. When we look at the chaplain piece, the spiritual piece of the person, chaplains are the expert on the spirit and soul, which is an essential piece to the whole health team. We know mainstream religion, and we also know about spiritual practices such as which Marcy just spoke of. And we acknowledge the roots of all. We acknowledge that every person sees things and needs to be whole, healed differently, completely different. If someone would have told me, listen, as a veteran, the VA has designated you the right to receive care for your spirit, then I would have sought care sooner. There is a mandate that says chaplain services are to be available to all veterans, inpatient and outpatient. And thank God, VAPIHCS now has a chaplain on board creating a service. And here she stands. These are the different therapies that we offer now. But many of our veterans out there within the community, who are your neighbors, your husbands, your wives, your children, your nieces, nephews, people that you may serve with, people that you may serve in a particular organization with, community, church, whatever. There are hidden wounds that many of us don't know about. So we can attempt to treat a hidden wound with medicine, which is necessary, because sometimes a blood clot is hidden, correct? But that spiritual part of the individual that needs treatment has the right to be seen. The person needs to be seen. When we think about loss of self, loss of dignity, now that I'm no longer in the military, who am I? I'll never be a civilian again. Where do I fit in? Who knows me? Who sees me? I'm speaking my story. Who can hear me? And is there a place that I can go to be heard? Well, there is. The VA is making great strides. We're doing great things. Since I've been here for 2 years, and VAPIHCS has been an awesome organization, and now we have chaplain service. Because those issues, when we look at moral injury, I spoke to a veteran the other day. He said, he said we had to do cleanup. There was a higher official that told us we had to clean up, our area was dirty. My battle buddy now, who was my best friend, he was with me. I picked up a pipe, I didn't know what it was. I gave it to him, I said, hey man, look at this. He said, Chaplain, next thing you know, I woke up and all I heard was muzzled sounds. I killed my best friend. I killed my best friend who was about to leave the next day to see his child born. I killed him. This is 12 years later. What do you do with that? Do you medicate it? You can. But what do you do with that piece that says, I'm bad, I did something that's harmful? That's the spiritual piece of man. That's that loss of hope. That's that guilt, the shame, the thing that causes us to isolate ourselves. We, as a community, should come together and understand the whole portion of the veteran, because we are all one team. We left our communities to join the military, and we returned to our communities. We are neighbors, we are friends, we're sons, we're daughters. We're people who need our community to embrace us, to learn about us. And we have opportunities to learn about veteran issues. We have the Community Clergy Training Program, in which I go out and I train community leaders, organizations, individuals, spouses, clubs, about the issue, the plight of the veteran. We all need to come together. If you want to know how to heal me, talk to me, listen to me, learn about me. Because we're all worth it. We are a community. Why is this important? Because 2.5 million service members deployed since 9/11. At least 1 in every 5 of those returning from Iraq and Afghanistan experienced PTSD, depression symptoms 6 months after the return home. The veteran suicide rate, I do apologize, the veteran suicide rate is at 20 per day. And we say, wow, it's been reduced to 20 from 22. There must be more. Listen, one of the precursors to suicide ideation is moral injury, loss of hope, loss of purpose, loss of meaning. Why did this happen to me? And for those who believe in God, well, where was God when all of this happened? he didn't save my friend. He was mangled when I stood up. Loss of purpose, loss of hope, moral injury, suicide prevention, and spiritual injury. Here's the thing. If we send them, we must mend them. How do we mend them? We mend them by coming together as a community. We understand that there's more than just one dimension of the person. There's spirit, there's soul, and there's body. We mend them, we come together, we heal them, we celebrate them, we cry with them, we just be with them. Why? Because we are them. Are there any questions?
So, I'm just curious, how do you deal with people that they don't believe in God, they don't have any spirituality issues, they don't believe in anything spiritual, so how do you encourage them to, or just how do you deal with it?
So there's a difference, sir, between spirituality and religion. Two totally different things. So one person can be religious and have their religion be their form of spirituality, how they practice. However, someone can be spiritual and not have religion. Now, for all of us, we're all spiritual. There's an aspect of something that we deem to be greater than ourselves that causes us to find that calm, that peace outside of who we are. And so we speak to that portion of the person. I think I'll say a large percentage of the people that I do see are non-religious, but consider themselves spiritual. So chaplaincy is not about religion. It's about providing spiritual care. And if your spiritual care or preference is religious, if we can't meet the need, then we know how to find someone who can meet the need. But I am a clinically trained chaplain, so I'm a clinical chaplain with a mental health certification. So we provide care with utilizing the modalities of mental health, MI, PTSD, the whole like.
Some people, they don't believe in God, and you ask them, what about any spirituality? I don't have none.
Right, right.
So, you know.
But, and then you can answer the question, well, what do you see as something that's greater than you? You know, what gives you hope? What gives you inspiration? You know, what do you see in your future? What would be the expected hope that you would have? Everyone has a hope. So what's your expected hope? And then what can we do to see where we are today and how we can begin to approach or reach that hope or work towards getting towards that hope? Or how far would you like to get down the road? There's more than one way to meet the need, the spiritual need of an individual without approaching religion. Does that answer your question, sir?
Just some people are, I asked them the same question. It's like, I don't have no hope. What about family?
One of the questions I ask in that regard to folks that I have conversations about this is, why do you get out of bed in the morning? What gets you up in the morning? And then you can feed off that answer.
Right.
Because everybody, I mean, if you're here, you got up this morning, right? If you chose not to, well, then you're not here listening to this. So something got you out of bed.
Right.
You can, start with that and then work.
Right. And I like your answer, sir. And that I shared this once before because I know what it is to not have hope. And this is one thing I normally say: if you've never been in a place where things were so dark, if you don't know what that's like, then be happy, because there are times when you can wake up and things are so dark that you don't even know why you got out of bed. The fact that I got out might have been muscle memory.
Full bladder.
A full bladder. I call that muscle memory. My bladder reminded me to get out of bed. We don't know what that is, but we're trained to sit down. So the thing I love about chaplaincy is we're trained to sit down in that moment and just be present. And as you figure it out, then we'll walk with you. And the thing that drives me so hard is when I went through my own personal trauma and, after trauma, I had no one to sit with me and just walk with me. And so knowing what that feels like convinced me, encouraged me, propelled me to be that place, to be that person, to be what was needed. So that's what chaplaincy is, sir. It's not about proselytizing. It's not about forcing a faith. It's about being with the person in that place where sometimes they don't even know where they are themselves. Well, ma'am?
Thank you both very much. I have two things. One is I work with our veterans who have Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, and I'm not sure if they know about the whole health part of their services. So I know they go through these specialty clinics, so I'm going to mention that to them because I think it's so wonderful.
Yes.
The second thing is some of my veterans have no beliefs, but then when I bring up quantum mechanics and the science part of it, which is greater than them, then they go, oh, they really, some of them really.
Yes.
And that's why I'm doing that.
Right. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Sir?
I just wanted to share with everyone, Hawaiian culture has a special ritual whereby the village welcomes back the warrior. In most cases, I'm a Vietnam veteran, you would come back and your family dealt with you and your problem. But the Hawaiian culture has a special ritual. On Maui, a group of a Hawaiian organization just got a grant, they're trying to work it with UH Maui. But the ritual was that the whole village helps you return, because the village is the one that is the beneficiary of the offense or defense, whether near or far to the village, that the village continues to thrive.
Right.
So it's, we're in Hawaii,
Yeah.
I just wanted to put that out. And what's wonderful too is that Western medicine is now embracing
Yes.
Eastern medicine, which has, like you say, centuries and centuries.
Right.
of
So, let me speak to his portion about the, and thus, what whole health is about. So I'll speak first to the ritual piece, and then you can speak to the whole health piece. So I don't know if any of you are aware, but there was a study done by Mr. Edward Tick, very well read, and he's one of the leading individuals when it comes to moral injury and PTSD. But the Vietnam veterans, not from the Western world, but from Vietnam, when they returned home, they didn't return home with PTSD. We did. And one of the greatest things that they said the biggest factor was because their community received them. So you look at the Native American population, you look at the Native African population, you look at the American Samoan, the Hawaiian population, they take ownership of that which belongs to them. Now, one thing that I'm hoping that we can begin to do is, once again, to take ownership of that which belongs to us. It takes a village to heal a person. Healing cannot be done in isolation. It's impossible. I always say if you can do it in isolation, then it would never require a man and a woman to come together to bring forth a child. Healing cannot be done in isolation. Birth cannot be done in isolation. It takes all of us. So, sir, I thank you for what you shared, to give me an opportunity to speak to the ritualistic piece of it. Rituals is one thing that chaplain services do provide. So whatever your ritualistic need is, we do that. The labyrinth, whatever it is, chaplain services have those options available as well. And lastly, I am involved in a 16-month research project between the Mental Health MIREC and Chaplain Services, who have an MOU together, and I am doing a 16-month study in the community to go out and speak about and dispel the myth and find out and educate issues on moral injury and suicide prevention. So if you know of anyone who was interested in having the conversation with calling, let's have the talk, let's open up and let's talk to clergy and fraternities, sororities, let's talk about moral injury, let's talk about suicide prevention, so that we can see where you are, what your beliefs are, and then we can come in and help to integrate the truths that are there, so we can see our veterans healed. We want to say mahalo together.
Mahalo.
Thank you for your time.
Namaste.
Namaste.